what happens when a young man's biggest opportunity slips through his fingers. Daniel Carter had the chance of a lifetime with a prestigious financial firm, but a storm, a flat tire, and the weight of his choices threatened to ruin. But what if the real test wasn't the interview? What if it was the decision he made in the midst of chaos? With a heart full of integrity, Daniel helped a stranger, never imagining that this single act would turn his world upside down. This is the story of how doing the right thing, even when it costs you everything, can lead to an unimaginable future. Can you believe it? Daniel Carter stood in front of his mirror, fumbling with his tie for what felt like the 7th time that morning. His reflection revealed a 24-year-old with eyes blazing with determination, though they couldn't quite mask the butterflies fluttering in his stomach. The navy suit he wore, oh, it was a masterpiece, bought with 3 months of hard-earned savings from his part-time barista gig, fit his lean frame like it was made for him. It was the priciest thing he owned. And today, it was going to earn its keep. Henderson and Company, he whispered to himself, his voice trembling with disbelief. Can you imagine? That prestigious financial firm, one that rarely looked beyond the Ivy League elite, had actually noticed his application. Maybe it was his flawless GPA from State University, or perhaps that glowing recommendation from Professor Winters that did the trick. Who knows? All Daniel was sure of was this: that interview was his golden ticket, his one shot to leap into a world that felt light years away from the tiny apartment he grew up in, raised by a single mom who juggled 2 jobs just to get him through college. He'd made a vow to himself, hadn't he, to make something extraordinary of his life. His wall calendar screamed it, with April 15th circled in bold red and the words "Future Begins" scrawled underneath in fierce, determined letters. He glanced at his watch. 7. His interview wasn't until 9:30, but was he going to take any chances? No way. He planned to be there by 8:45, giving himself plenty of time to calm his nerves and go over his notes one last time. The weather app mentioned a chance of light rain. No big deal, right? Nothing to throw him off course. He snatched his leather portfolio, another extravagant purchase for this momentous day, and headed for the door. You've got this, Daniel, he told himself, casting a final look at his cramped studio apartment. Oh, how he hoped that after today, this place would just be a fading memory. But then disaster struck. The first raindrops hit as he stepped out of the subway station 6 blocks from the Henderson building. By the time he'd gone half a block, those innocent drops had morphed into a torrential downpour, pouring from a sky that had turned pitch black in seconds. Thunder roared overhead, so loud it rattled his chest. No, he gasped, his heart sinking as he tried to shield his portfolio with his body. That portfolio was everything. His resume, his carefully crafted answers to potential questions, letters of recommendation, even a financial analysis he'd poured his heart into to show what he was made of. If it got ruined, he'd lose his edge. All around him, the city was spiraling into chaos. Pedestrians scrambled for cover, umbrellas flipped inside out in the howling wind, and streets started flooding as storm drains choked on the deluge. Traffic crawled, horns blaring in a symphony of frustration. What was happening? Desperate, Daniel spotted a coffee shop and darted inside, joining a huddle of soggy strangers seeking refuge. He checked his watch. 8:10 a.m. Okay, he still had time, but the rain wasn't letting up. Through the streaked windows, he saw debris whipping down the street, tossed by ferocious winds. Worst storm in 5 years, a barista muttered as she wiped the counter. They're saying it might flood the financial district. The financial district, that's where Henderson and Company was. Daniel's stomach dropped. He yanked out his phone, fumbling with the ride-sharing app. No cars available. None. Everyone was either hiding from the storm or fighting for a ride. He refreshed the screen over and over, but it was no use. The taxi app was just as hopeless. 8:35. Panic clawed at his chest. What was he going to do? He couldn't stay put. Bracing himself, Daniel plunged back into the storm, the rain instantly soaking his perfectly styled hair and seeping through his suit jacket. He clutched his portfolio to his chest and started jogging, eyes scanning desperately for a taxi with its light on. Minutes dragged on. 8:50 a.m. The Henderson building was still over a mile away, and he was His dress shoes, polished to a mirror shine the night before, splashed through puddles that reached his ankles. Water crept into his socks, squelching with every step. At a busy intersection, he finally spotted a taxi dropping off a passenger. Hopes, he sprinted, waving like a madman, only to watch someone else dive into the back seat just as he got there. The taxi sped off, leaving him stranded in the flooded street, rain streaming down his face. Could this get any worse? 9:05 a.m. He was officially late, his carefully planned buffer time gone, washed away by the storm. He kept moving, alternating between a jog and a fast walk, his breaths heavy with exertion and a rising tide of anxiety. The job market was brutal for recent grads, especially for someone like him with no connection. This interview was the result of months of applications, countless rejections and relentless follow-ups. If he missed it, he couldn't even think about it. A bus roared by, splashing a wave of gritty street water over his pants. He barely registered it, his mind racing, recalculating his arrival time against the flooded streets and the weight of his sodden clothes. 9:15 a.m. There it was, the Henderson Building, its gleaming glass facade looming through the curtain of rain, looking more intimidating than ever. A spark of hope ignited in his chest. Could he make it? Maybe just in time, or only a few minutes late. Surely they'd understand, given this insane weather. He picked up his pace, his portfolio a soggy mess against his chest, his once pristine suit clinging to him like a second skin. The rain wasn't just an inconvenience anymore, it was his enemy, and he was determined to fight it. But then, something stopped him dead in his tracks. Through the storm's roar and his own ragged breathing, he heard a voice frail, elderly and distressed, coming from just off the main street. Daniel froze. What now? His eyes darted between the Henderson Building's towering silhouette and the source of the voice. A few yards away, half hidden by the pouring rain, stood an old man next to a sleek black sedan, its front passenger tire completely flat. The man's expensive overcoat was soaked through, his silver hair plastered to his forehead as he wrestled with a jack that just wouldn't cooperate. Blasted thing, he muttered, his trembling hands slipping on the wet pavement. Daniel glanced at his watch. Not 12 minutes until his interview, and the Henderson Building was still blocks away. Every second was critical. Just keep going, a voice in his head screamed. This is your future, someone else will help him. But the streets were nearly empty, the few passers-by hurrying with their heads down, oblivious to the old man's struggle. He looked so frail, maybe in his 70s, his frustration growing as the jack slipped again. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut for a split second, his father's words echoing in his mind. Your character is defined by what you do when no one's watching. His dad had passed away when Daniel was 14, but those words, they were his guiding star. Damn, Daniel whispered, his heart already deciding before his mind caught up. He jogged over to the old man, who looked up with wide, startled eyes. Sir, let me help you, Daniel called out, raising his voice over the storm's howl. Relief flooded the man's weathered face. Oh, thank heaven. I'm not as spry as I used to be. My driver's off today, and I thought I could handle this myself. Foolish, I know. Daniel carefully placed his precious portfolio on the sedan's back seat through the open door, praying it wouldn't take any more damage. His suit jacket already ruined, but still his pride and joy came off, and he laid it on the flooded street, kneeling on it to keep his pants from getting worse. He took the jack from the old man's trembling hands. You shouldn't be out in this mess, Daniel said, expertly positioning the jack under the car's frame. This storm's caught us all off guard, hasn't it? The old man watched him work, his gaze sharp and curious. I haven't missed a day at the office in 47 years. Not about to let a little rain stop me now. He paused, eyeing Daniel's steady movements. You're in quite a rush yourself, young man, aren't you? Daniel flashed a strained smile as he cranked the jack. Job interview. A really big one, actually. Oh my, the old man nodded. And yet here you are stopping to help an old fool with a flat tire. The car began to lift. You're not a fool, sir, Daniel countered. Anyone can get a flat, happens to the best of them. The rain pounded down his back, his white dress shirt now see-through and plastered to his skin. In minutes he had the damaged tire off, his hands smeared with grime and rainwater. He was a mess, but he didn't care. The spare tire in the trunk was in good shape, thank goodness, and he mounted it with the ease of someone who'd spent high school summers in his uncle's garage. Who knew those sweaty days would come in handy? Almost there, Daniel announced, tightening the lug nuts with his watch read 9:27 a.m. His interview slot was gone. But strangely, a calm settled over him. Was he crazy? He was doing the right thing, even if it cost him everything. The old man stood nearby, partially sheltered by the car's open trunk. You handle tools like a pro, he remarked. Not something you see much these days. Daniel chuckled despite the situation. My uncle wouldn't let me drive his old pickup until I could change a tire. Called it a life skill every guy needs. Your uncle sounds like a smart man, the old man said, his eyes warm and crinkling at the corners. Where's this big interview of yours, if I may ask? Daniel finished tightening the last lug nut and started lowering the car. Henderson and Company, a financial firm just a few blocks away. What was that look? A flicker of something, surprise, maybe curiosity, danced across the old man's face as Daniel mentioned Henderson and Company. I'm familiar with them, he said, his voice measured, almost cautious. Pretty strict about punctuality, aren't they? Daniel's heart sank, but he kept his voice steady. Yes sir, they sure are, he replied, even as a heavy wave of disappointment crashed over him. But sometimes don't you think some things matter more than being on time? The old man's eyebrows shot up, his eyes widening slightly. Even a job opportunity that could change your entire life. Daniel stood, brushing his hands against his ruined pants. The effort futile against the grime and rain. Even that, he declared, his voice. You needed help, sir. How could I just walk by? The rain, thank goodness, was finally easing up, but the damage was done. Daniel grabbed his soggy portfolio from the back seat and scooped up his mud-caked jacket. He looked like he'd just swum across a river in his business suit. Could he possibly look any worse? Please let me give you a ride, the old man offered, gesturing to his now functional car with a warmth that caught Daniel off guard. It's the least I can do after your kindness. Daniel glanced at his watch one last time. 9:33 a.m. His interview slot was gone, vanished like a dream. But wait, maybe, just maybe, if he explained what happened, showed them he'd made it, even late, they'd understand. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you, he said, climbing into the passenger seat, careful not to drip too much water on the plush leather interior. The old man slid behind the wheel with a springiness that belied his age. Henderson and Company, right? He confirmed. Yes sir, Daniel sighed, though I'm not sure it matters now. I'm already. The sedan glided into traffic, its windshield wipers lazily swiping away the now gentle rain. The old man navigated the flooded streets with the confidence of someone who'd driven them 1,000 times. Young man, may I have your name? He asked, his tone kind but curious. Daniel Carter, he replied, managing a small smile despite the weight in his chest. The old man nodded, a subtle smile tugging at his lip. Well, Daniel Carter, isn't it funny how life throws tests at us when we least expect it? He extended his right hand, keeping his left on the wheel. I'm Theo. Daniel shook his hand, noting the surprisingly firm grip and the glint of an expensive watch peeking out from Theodore's coat sleeve. Thank you for the ride, Theodore. It means a lot. No, Daniel, Theodore said, his eyes fixed on the road, his voice carrying a depth that made Daniel pause. I'm the one who's grateful for what you did today, more than you might ever guess. There it was, the Henderson building, 85 stories of glass and steel piercing the gray sky like a beacon of ambition. Even through the fading rain, it screamed power and prestige, making Daniel's heart race, despite his drenched, disheveled state, and the crushing fact that he was nearly 40 minutes late. Theodore eased the sedan to a stop at the building's grand entrance. Here we are, he said, turning to Daniel with a look that seemed almost apologetic. I wish you the best of luck, young man. Thank you for the ride, sir, Daniel said, clutching his waterlogged portfolio, hesitating before opening the door. And thank you for understanding why I had to stop. Theodore nodded, his expression thoughtful. Character shines through in the toughest moments, Daniel. Don't you ever forget that. Taking a deep breath, Daniel stepped out into the humid aftermath of the storm. The rain had stopped, but oh, the damage was done. His shoes squelched with every step across the polished marble of the entrance plaza, each sound a reminder of his ruined appearance. Inside the towering lobby, the air conditioning hit his soaked clothes like an Arctic blast, sending shivers down his spine. The security desk staff eyed him with barely hidden skepticism as he approached, dripping water onto the pristine floor. "Good morning," he said, forcing confidence into his voice despite feeling like a drowned rat. "I'm Daniel Carter. I have an interview with Henderson and Company at 9:30. The guard's face softened just a touch. "Yes, Miss Carter, you're on the list," he said, gesturing toward the elevators. "42nd floor, but fair warning, they're sticklers for their schedule." "I understand. Thank you," Daniel replied, his stomach twisting. The elevator ride was a strange mix of too fast and agonizingly slow. Daniel tried to salvage his appearance, running fingers through his drenched hair and dabbing his face with a soggy handkerchief. The reflection in the elevator's polished doors showed a guy who'd been through a natural disaster and hadn't. The 42nd floor greeted him with quiet elegance, soft lights glowing on rich mahogany walls adorned with abstract art. The reception desk, manned by a sharply dressed woman in her 30s, felt like a fortress guarding his fading dreams. "Good morning," he started, his voice cracking with nerve. "I'm Daniel Carter. I had an interview at 9:30. I know I'm late, and I'm so sorry. There was an elderly man with a flat tire in the storm, and I just couldn't." The receptionist raised a manicured hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. Her eyes weren't cruel, but they left no room for debate. "Mr. Carter, I see you on our schedule, but your interview slot has passed. Mr. Brennan has moved on to other candidates." Daniel's heart plummeted. "Please," he leaned forward, desperation creeping in. "I've been preparing for months. Could I just have 5 minutes with Miss Brennan to explain?" "I'm sorry," she said firmly, glancing at his bedraggled state. Mr. Brennan was clear. Henderson and Company values punctuality as a sign of professionalism and respect. "Perhaps you'd like to leave your resume. We can contact you if other opportunities come up." Her words hit like a polite slap, the corporate version of "don't call us, we'll call you." Daniel's shoulders drooped, just a fraction. "Could I speak with Mr. Brennan directly?" Just for a moment he pressed. Her expression didn't budge. "Miss Brennan is in interviews until noon, then booked with meetings all day. I can pass along a message, but that's the best I can do." Daniel stood there, water dripping from his once perfect suit, forming a small puddle on the luxurious carpet. The weight of his roadside decision hit him like a ton of bricks. He'd thrown away his one shot at the financial world to help a stranger. Why did it hurt so much? "I understand," he said quietly, his voice heavy. "Could you please tell Miss Brennan, I'm sorry for missing the appointment and would love a chance to reschedule." He handed over a resume from his portfolio. One of the few pages spared the worst of the rain, though its edges were still damp, a perfect symbol of his crumbling hope. "I'll make sure he gets it," the receptionist said, her tone softening just a bit. Maybe because she saw the heartbreak he was fighting to hide. "Thank you," he murmured. He turned to leave, then paused. "Could I ask who I would have interviewed with besides Mr. Brennan?" Today's hiring committee was Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Yoshida from International Accounts, and Mr. Harrington from Risk Assessment, she replied, then added gently, "If it helps Mr. Carter, these things happen. Other opportunities will come." But they both knew that wasn't true, didn't? Henderson and Company only hired the elite, and landing this interview had been a near miracle. As he walked back to the elevator, Daniel felt empty, like a balloon slowly deflating. The ding of the arriving car sounded like a funeral bell for the dream he'd nurtured since his first finance class in college. In the elevator descending, he let himself feel the regret. Had he made a terrible mistake? If he'd ignored that stranded old man, he'd be in that interview right now, wowing them with his passion and knowledge. Instead, he was heading home with nothing but a wrecked suit and a story of what could have. The lobby felt even grander, more untouchable, as he trudged out, its success mocking him. Outside, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a cruelly cheerful glow on what felt like the darkest moment of his young career. His shoes still squished with every step as he walked down the street, pulling out his phone to open his job search app. There were other firms out there, smaller, less glamorous, with fewer chances to climb, but they were something right. He couldn't just give up. At a crosswalk, waiting for the signal, his thoughts drifted to Theodore. Those eyes so full of genuine gratitude, didn't that mean something? Maybe it was naive, but Daniel still believed doing the right thing mattered, even if it cost him dearly. "At least I can face myself in the mirror," he whispered as the walk signal flashed, letting him cross the street, leaving Henderson and Company, and what might have been behind. 3 days later, the sun blazed through the windows of his tiny studio apartment,
almost mocking him as he hunched over his laptop, tweaking his resume for the 5th time that morning. His suit, back from the dry cleaner at a cost that stung, hung on his closet door, a bittersweet reminder of hope and heartbreak. Junior financial analyst, he muttered, scrolling through job listing. The roles at smaller firms offered half the pay and prestige of Henderson and Company. But what choice did he have? His savings were shrinking and city rent was relentless. His phone buzzed, his mom's smiling face on the screen. Daniel hesitated. He still hadn't told her about missing the interview. How could he bear her disappointment? She'd been so proud when he'd shared the news about Henderson. "Hey Mom," he answered, forcing a cheerful tone. "Daniel, I've been thinking about you all morning. How's the job hunt going?" He swallowed hard, ready to confess. "Actually, Mom, about that Henderson interview." A sharp beep cut him off. An unknown number with the city's area code flashed on the screen. "Mom, can I call you back? I've got another call, and it might be about a job." "Of course, honey. Go get him." Daniel's heart raced as he switched calls, clearing his throat to steady his nerves. "Daniel Carter speaking," he said, trying to sound professional despite the butterflies in his stomach. "Miss Carter," came a crisp, polished female voice. "This is Sandra Mitchell, executive assistant to the CEO of Henderson and Company. I'm calling to invite you for an interview this afternoon at 2. Are you available?" Daniel's mind went blank, completely blank. Henderson and Company. Again, a yes, I'm available. But wait, I thought. He stumbled over his words, his brain scrambling to make sense of this bombshell. Hadn't he blown his chance? "Excellent," Miss Mitchell continued, her tone calm and unfazed. "Please come to the main reception on the 85th floor, not the HR department where you were scheduled before. Do you need directions to our building?" "No, thank you. I know where it is," Daniel replied, his voice automatic, his head still spinning. "But can I ask why I'm getting another interview? I missed my appointment earlier this week." There was a brief pause, just long enough to make him sweat. "I'm afraid I don't have that information, Mr. Carter. I was simply told to arrange this meeting. Is 2 Yes, absolutely," he blurted, his heart pounding. "Very good, we'll see you then." The call ended, leaving Daniel staring at his phone, utterly baffled. What was going on?
Oh, how the scent of freshly baked pizza used to wrap Michael Carter in warmth, his absolute favorite aroma in the whole world. For 15 long years, it welcomed him each morning as he turned the key in the lock of Carter's classic pizza. A sweet reminder of the dream he'd poured his heart into from nothing. But today, that same smell twisted his stomach into painful knots as he stood across the street, disguised in his teenage son's oversized clothes, barely recognizing himself. "You've got this, Mike," he whispered, tugging at the faded Red Sox cap that felt so wrong on his head. "Why a Red Sox cap, you ask? Pure strategy." His staff knew he bled Yankees blue. Gone were his sharp button-downs and tailored pants, swapped for baggy jeans and a hoodie that screamed middle-aged dad trying way too hard to be cool. The morning rush had just fizzled out, and through the big glass windows, Michael could see his staff lounging about with a laziness that made his jaw tighten. Something was terribly wrong at his restaurant. Could it really be this bad? The numbers at home didn't lie. Revenue had plummeted 40% in just 3 months, but it was the small, heart-wrenching details that kept him awake at night. Mrs. Romano, bless her, hadn't shown up for her Tuesday vegetarian supreme pizza in weeks. 14 years of loyalty gone. The Martinez family, who'd celebrated every birthday and graduation at his tables, had canceled their standing reservation last month. And the high school basketball team, they ditched Carter's, their post-game ritual for Pizza Hut of all places. How could this be happening? Michael fumbled with his phone, pulling up the restaurant's review page. A 1-star review stabbed at his heart. "Found a hair in my pizza. Manager didn't even care. Never coming back." A hair. Impossible. He'd enforced hairnets in the kitchen since day one. A sacred. Just then, a young couple stepped out of the restaurant, their faces sour with disappointment. The pizza was cold in the middle, the girl grumbled. Cold in the middle? Michael's heart sank deeper. His grandfather's recipe, perfected over 3 generations, didn't allow for such a failure. How could his legacy be crumbling like this? Taking a shaky breath, he crossed the street, every step heavy with dread. The bell above the door jingled as he slipped inside, and he fought the urge to fix its annoying squeak right then and there. Normally, he'd have it oiled by lunch. Instead, he shuffled to the counter, head down, playing the part of just another customer. "Welcome to Carter's," mumbled Tom, the new cashier, barely glancing up from his phone. Michael had hired him 2 months ago, but something about the kid always felt. His references were solid, so why this nagging doubt? Can I get a slice of pepperoni and a Coke?" Michael said, pitching his voice high and adding a nervous quiver. "That's $7.50, Tom replied, finally looking up with a bored stare that made Michael itch to lecture him about customer service on the spot. As he paid, Michael's eyes caught something strange. Tom didn't punch the order into the fancy POS system Michael had shelled out thousands for last year. Instead, he jotted something on a cheap notepad and yelled 1 pep slice to the kitchen. When Michael got his receipt, he frowned. It was flimsy, thin, not the usual thermal paper. What was going on here? He tucked it into his pocket, his mind buzzing, and found a seat near the counter to watch. The lunch rush was coming, and he needed to see how his staff handled. His slice arrived, lukewarm. The cheese congealed in a sad, greasy mess. This wasn't his pizza. How could they serve this under his name? A group of construction workers, regulars who loved the meat lovers special, strolled. Michael watched as Lisa, his other cashier, took their order. No POS system again. She scribbled on a different notepad from Tom's. "The quality's gone downhill," one worker muttered. "Remember how good this place used to be?" Michael's grip on his slice tightened. His knuckles. His grandfather's recipe book, filled with secret techniques and handwritten notes, passed down through generations, was his pride. He made the sauce himself every morning, following those sacred instructions to the letter. The dough proofed for exactly 72 hours, the cheese blend custom ordered from a small Wisconsin dairy. What in the world was happening to his restaurant? The lunch rush kicked into gear, and Michael noticed something chilling. Every time a customer complained, and oh, there were plenty, Tom and Lisa swapped quick, sneaky glances. Their responses felt scripted, too polished. "We'll let the owner know," they'd say, or "management's aware of the issues." Then a moment that froze his blood. A young mother stormed to the counter, her face red with fury. "This is the 3rd time this week my delivery order's been wrong," she cried, slamming a pizza box down. "I ordered a plain cheese pizza for my kid's birthday party, and this is covered in jalapenos and hot sauce." Lisa's reply was slick, almost rehearsed. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. Our delivery system's been glitchy lately. Would you like a refund?" "I want to speak to the owner," the woman demanded. "Mr. Carter's away on business." Tom jumped in too fast. "He's dealing with some personal issues." Michael's chest tightened. He hadn't been away. He'd been in his office every single day, poring over the books, desperate to figure out what was wrong. How many others had been fed this lie? As the woman left with her refund, Michael overheard something that stopped him cold. Lisa leaned toward Tom, her voice a whisper, but in a brief lull her words hit him like a slap. "It's almost too easy," she chuckled. "He still thinks people just don't like his pizza anymore." His heart stopped. Was this really happening? His fingers trembled as he opened his phone's voice recorder app, hands shaking so hard he nearly dropped it. This wasn't just bad service or cold food. Something sinister was afoot at Carter's Classic Pizza. He'd come looking for answers about his failing business. But had he stumbled onto a conspiracy? Oh, this was just the beginning. He could feel it. He positioned his phone on the table, microphone aimed at the counter, and took a bite of his now cold pizza, pretending to be calm while his mind screamed. Tom and Lisa kept talking, their voices low but clear in the post-lunch quiet. "Did you see his face last week when he checked the number?" Lisa snickered, lazily restocking napkins. "Looked like he was gonna cry." Michael remembered that moment vividly. He'd been alone in his office, or so he thought, staring at reports showing they'd lost 3 major catering contracts in a week. How had they seen him? Were they spying on him, watching his every move like predators? "The best part," Tom whispered, leaning closer. "He's still using his grandfather's special recipe, measuring every gram like it's holy." He patted his pocket where Michael had noticed a small vial earlier. "What was the sauce modifier?" Lisa asked, one eyebrow raised. "A few drops, and any pizza tastes like cardboard. Totally safe, just kills the flavor." Dylan's chemist friend is a genius. Dylan. The name hit Michael like a punch to the gut. That tall, lanky kid with fiery eyes and a chip on his shoulder. Michael had hired him 8 months ago as a shift manager, dazzled by his business degree and passion. But then the register shortages started. $20 here. Michael installed security cameras hoping it was a mistake. Instead, he caught Dylan stealing cash after hours. The confrontation was brutal. Dylan raged about his student loans, how Michael had everything handed to him, how he'd regret firing him. Michael brushed it off as a desperate kid's tantrum. Oh, how wrong he... Speaking of Dylan, Lisa went on. He says we need to push harder. Carter's too stubborn, not selling fast enough. Time for phase 2. Tom's grin sent shivers down Michael's spine. Already on it. Got a buddy at the health department who'll slap some major violations on us next week. Isn't that risky? Lisa asked. Nah, Dylan's got it covered. The inspector's got gambling debts, and Dylan's got photos. Once Carter sells, the new owners will make those violations vanish like magic. Michael felt sick. His kitchen was spotless. His grandfather had drilled food safety into him since he was a kid. The idea of someone sabotaging that, it made his blood boil. The door's bell chimed, and Michael nearly jumped out of his skin. Sarah Chun, his head chef for a decade, walked in, dressed in street clothes. She wasn't supposed to be here today. Hey guys, she said, her usual cheer replaced by a heavy tone. Is Carter in? Nah, hiding in his office as usual, Tom sneered. Probably crying over the book. Sarah's face tightened, just a flicker. She'd been distant lately. Michael thought it was stress, but now he wondered, was there more to her? I need to check something in the kitchen, she said, heading for the swinging doors. Wait, Lisa called, too sharp. Health inspector's coming soon. No unauthorized folks back there. Sarah stopped, hand on the door. Since when do you care about health regulations? The air crackled with tension. Could you feel? Michael's eyes locked onto Tom's hand as it crept toward that suspicious pocket, the one hiding that mysterious vial. Sarah's sharp gaze followed too, and he could feel the tension crackling in the air. What was she thinking? You know what? Sarah said, her voice calm but icy. Never mind, I'll come back later. As she turned to leave, Michael caught a flash of something in her hand. A tiny camera. His heart raced. Was she on to them? She slipped out the door fast, and through the window, he saw her whip out her phone, already dialing. Think she's Tom muttered, his eyes tracking Sarah's figure as she vanished down the street. Lisa just shrugged, her voice dripping with smugness. Doesn't matter, by next week, this place will be buried under health code violations. Carter will be lucky to sell it for scraps to cover his loan. Dylan's buyer ready, Tom pressed. Oh yeah, Lisa sneered. Some big shot chain restaurant developer. They're gonna bulldoze this dump, slap up a franchise. Dylan gets his finder's fee, we get our bonuses, and he gets to watch his precious family legacy turn into another soulless burger joint. Michael's grip on his pizza slice was so tight it crumbled into doughy mush. That recipe book in his office, his grandfather's treasure, wasn't just pages of ingredients, it was memory. His father's patient hands teaching him to knead dough, his grandfather's proud grin as he showed him how to smell the sauce just right. The electric joy of opening Carter's classic pizza together. The thought of it all being erased, it lit a fire in his chest. He'd come here to sniff out bad service, but oh, he'd stumbled into something far darker. A full-blown conspiracy to destroy everything he built. But they'd messed up big time. They thought his quiet meant he was weak, that his love for tradition meant he couldn't fight back. Oh, how wrong they were. What kind of man lets his family's legacy be crushed without a fight? As Tom and Lisa kept scheming, oblivious to their boss sitting just feet away, Michael's mind was already spinning a plan. Sarah's sneaky camera move, could she be an ally? If Dylan thought he was the only one playing a long game, he was in for a shock. Michael grabbed his phone, his fingers steady now, and stopped the recording. He had evidence, but he needed more. As their cruel words about destroying his life's work echoed in his ears, a new feeling surged past his shock and rage. Pure, unshakable determination. This wasn't the end. Oh no, the game was just getting started. He waited, heart pounding, until Tom and Lisa were distracted with afternoon prep, then slipped out of the restaurant like a ghost. His mind was a whirlwind of everything he'd heard. Could it really be this bad? He couldn't act rashly, not now. As he rounded the corner to his car, a voice stopped him cold.
Nice hat. A Yankees diehard like you must have hated wearing that Red Sox junk. Sarah Chun stepped out from behind a delivery van, arms crossed, a sly smile on her face. Michael's heart leapt into his throat. Was she onto him? But that smile said she wasn't here to blow his cover. How long have you known? He asked, yanking off the cap. Since you limped in, she said, smirking. That high school baseball injury's a dead giveaway. But more importantly, she pulled out her phone, her eyes gleaming. I've been collecting evidence for weeks. Michael stared at his head chef, his partner of 10 years, stunned. You knew about Dylan's plan. Not the whole thing, she admitted. But I knew something was rotten when suppliers started swapping out our premium ingredients for cheap garbage without approval. Delivery orders kept getting screwed up too. She swiped through her phone, showing him a goldmine: screenshots of shady text messages, photos of doctored invoices, even a video of Tom sneaking something into the sauce when he thought he was alone. Why didn't you tell me? Michael asked, the hurt cutting deep in his voice. Sarah's face darkened. At first I thought you were in on it. Think about it, Michael. The insurance policy got updated 3 months ago. The property value reassessed. It looked like you were setting up to sell. Maybe even tanking the place on purpose for a big insurance payout. The words hit Michael like a sucker punch. The insurance update, just his yearly check-in with his advisor. The property assessment, a desperate loan application to weather the storm. But from the outside, oh, he could see how it looked shady. What changed your mind? He asked, voice tight. This. Sarah pulled up a text chain, her eyes flashing. Dylan got cocky, bragging to his buddies about his foolproof plan to ruin Carter's. I overheard him at a bar last week, drunk and spilling secret. That's when I knew you weren't the mastermind. You were the target. They ducked into Sarah's car for privacy, and what she revealed next made Michael's blood run cold. Dylan's not working alone, she said, pulling out a thick folder. He's a pawn in a much bigger scheme. Look, she handed him a stack of papers, property records, zoning applications, development plans, all stamped with Riverside Development Corporation. Michael's eyes widened. They've been snapping up every property on this street. Your restaurant's the last holdout for their fancy new shopping complex. They tried to buy you out fair and square 6 months ago through that real estate agent. Remember? Oh, he remembered. I told them Carter's wasn't for sale. Not for any price. Exactly, Sarah said, her voice fierce. That's when they recruited Dylan. He was running his mouth about getting fired, boasting he knew all the restaurant's weak spots. They offered him revenge and a cut of the deal. Michael's hands shook as he flipped through the papers. Property assessments, environmental surveys, permits, all dated before Dylan's firing. This wasn't just petty revenge. It was corporate sabotage. But here's the kicker, Sarah said, a grim smile spreading. Dylan doesn't know Riverside's planning to screw him over. They've got a paper trail painting him as the lone bad guy, threatening their staff, blackmailing the health inspector, all on his own. He thinks he's getting a fat payout, but they're setting him up to take the fall. How'd you get all this? Michael asked, stunned. Sarah hesitated. My brother, the corporate lawyer. He's seen Riverside's dirty tricks before. They've pulled this stunt with other businesses, using bitter ex-employees, then tossing them aside. Michael's head was spinning. All this time he'd thought he was fighting a scorned kid's grudge. Instead, he'd stumbled into a corporate takeover plot that made Dylan's scheme look like child's play. There's more, Sarah whispered, her voice dropping lower. That health inspector visit next week. It's not just violations. They're planting evidence of money laundering, building a fake paper trail to make it look like you're running a criminal operation. The business slump, perfect excuse for why you'd suddenly sell. That's why they switched the receipt paper. Michael gasped, the pieces clicking. They're cooking a second set of books. Bingo, Sarah said. Tom and Lisa think they're just helping Dylan get even. They don't realize they're part of a criminal conspiracy that could land them in federal prison. Michael leaned back, closing his eyes, overwhelmed. His grandfather had built this restaurant with just a recipe book and a dream. His father had made it a neighborhood cornerstone. Now he faced not just losing it all, but seeing his family's name dragged through the mud with lies of crime. Unless could he turn this around? Sarah, he said slowly. You said Dylan doesn't know Riverside's betraying him. Not a clue, she replied. Why? A plan was forming, sharp and daring in Michael's mind. Because that's our way. Dylan thinks he's the genius pulling the strings. Riverside thinks they're running the show from the shadows. Tom and Lisa think they're just playing a little sabotage game. Everyone's got their own version of the truth. What's the plan? Sarah asked, leaning. It's time they all find out who they're really messing with. Michael pulled out his phone, a spark of defiance in his eyes. First, I need to call an old friend in the FBI's white-collar crime division. He flashed a smile, His first real one and Sarah, I'm gonna need your help with a special recipe. She raised an eyebrow, a grin tugging at her lips. Your grandfather's secret sauce kind, or the kind that serves up some serious justice? Both, Michael said, his smile turning fierce. Oh, definitely both. The next 3 days were the toughest Michael had ever faced. Every morning he drove to Carter's Classic Pizza, slipping into his office like nothing was wrong, while Sarah kept a hawk's eye on Tom and Lisa. But his office, it was now a war room for their daring counterstrike. Your FBI friend came through, Sarah whispered during a hushed meeting, sliding a sleek device across his desk. High-quality recording pen, way better than your phone. Michael picked up the innocent-looking pen, his pulse raced. And get this, Sarah added, the FBI's hot on Riverside development. Your case links to 3 others across the country. They've been building a RICO case against them for months. A sharp knock at the door made them both jump. It was Tom, clutching a stack of delivery receipts. Mr. Carter, need your signature," he mumbled, his eyes darting around the office like he was hunting for clues of collapse or a for sale sign. Michael signed slowly, using his new recording pen, watching Tom closely. "Everything okay, Tom?" he asked, casual but point. "You seem jittery." "No, sir. All good," Tom stammered, his hand slipping to that vile pocket. A dead giveaway Michael now tracked like a hawk. After Tom scurried out, Sarah shook her head. "He's spooked. Yesterday he asked why you weren't freaking out about the latest health code threat." "Perfect." Michael grinned, a glint in his eye. "That means it's time for phase 1. Make the call."